Hi, everyone. For this week's newsletter, we decided as part of our overall November Wisdom Exchange here at Optionality that we would feature one of our members and advisory committee members, Melissa Ford, talking about something that she's an absolute expert in, and that I think eventually those of us, whether we're thinking about our own so if we're a solopreneur, solo consultant, or if we have a company, or if we're doing marketing for someone else's company, we all end up thinking, isn't advertising on social media, isn't that necessary? Isn't that the answer? Isn't that going to deliver everything I want? But if you've ever tried to actually go in there yourself and like figure it out, it's complicated. I don't feel like they make it easy. I've been running a few LinkedIn ads this year, and it's kind of this very convoluted process. But Melissa has been doing it for clients and companies for years, and she is the master. So, Melissa, thank you so much for joining us. I'm hoping to pick your brain for a good little while about this very complicated topic.
It's actually funny you said that because and I think everyone did taught themselves HTML
Yeah.
at the beginning of blogging. It was and HTML has not changed appreciably. So like you could teach yourself it. It was pretty simple, very straightforward. And even if you had no computer background, you could jump into blogging and hosting your own site.
Yep.
It has gotten progressively more complicated. And I feel that the same way with ads. There was a time before they, I think, added all these like AI features that it was pretty straightforward. Maybe it would take you a few days to learn it and to get really good at it and truly understand what was happening on the back end when you
Yeah.
create an ad and how ads work. I think it's really they've made it harder. Like in making it easier, they've made it harder. So I,
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Thank you for validating me. Down to the fact I would try to go look at like just the reporting on how my ad was doing, and they've buried. It took me so many clicks to like get to the right information. I was like, how can this be the best way? But let's take a step back. So another thing about Melissa is that she is a writer and a writerly person and a book person and a reader person. She's written fiction, she's written nonfiction. I, of course, met her early in the years of wrote for us for many, many years. And, I'll just say that it doesn't seem intuitive that you would become an expert on paid advertising campaigns, because I think some people would think that an excellent writer of fiction and nonfiction and like all authentic personal expression might not necessarily be the best marketing copywriter or ad writer. But there's so much, first of all, there's so much more to what it takes to run these campaigns successfully than just writing the copy of the ad. But also, how did you figure out that, oh, I can do this and I can be really good at this? And how does it relate to all the writing and communicating you did before?
Well, so growing up, my favorite book was The Phantom Tollbooth by Norton
Oh,
Juster. It was the first book where I read it and I didn't want it. I cried so hard on the last page that it had ended, and my sister told me, she's like, you could just start the book again. Like, and so for a long time, I never read the last page of the book. Like I read it the first time, but then like I would stop and I just go right back to the beginning. And I was 6 years old and I love that book. And if you remember that book, it is about sort of the marriage of words and numbers. There's
mhm.
King and the math magician and rhyme and reason and these things all come together. And to me, that's where that's what I love is that intersection of math and words. And I think for to be good at making ads, you need to have sort of three skills. You need the writing. So you need to be able to persuade people with words and as few words as possible
Right.
because you people move quickly.
Yeah.
You need to know the math because there's actually equations you can run that will tell you whether an ad will be successful before you've ever spent any money on it. I can literally look at the metrics and tell you like that will work, that will not work. Let's tweak this and see if it'll, now we can make it work. So I don't spend any money until I've tested organically is my personal thing I do. I know a lot of ad people will be like, oh, I do A/B testing. And I'm like, wow, you just spent more money than you needed to. But, and then psychology, I think, like kind of knowing what gets people to click or look at something, or because really what I'm trying to get people to do is stop. And I think if you can see the world that way, I went to a play last night, Hello Dolly, and there's a scene where all the actors and actresses are on a train, I guess going from Yonkers into New
Put
York.
on
And
your
there's a
Sunday
train.
clothes
There,
when you feel down and
yeah.
yes.
So they're all on this train. The train has, it looks like a train, but it has these open bars, and the people are dancing at different levels on the train and hanging off of these kind of like poles. And it is, the costumes are really, really bright and colorful. And it's not the natural picture you would choose for Hello Dolly. You would probably feature Dolly, but I was like, nope, that's the one you want. So my husband does the marketing at the theater. So that was my first piece of feedback. And it was like, have you made your ads yet? If you haven't, that's the picture that you want to go with for this one. And he turned, he's like, I know. He's like that. He's like, you didn't have to tell me. I saw it. But it's kind of being able to quickly look at a scene or I mean a still image, your options of still images, or taking all those things and seeing what's going to make someone stop, because that is sort of the first step of an ad, is getting people to slow down and interact with it.
Okay. So my experience, limited though it may be, on advertising on these different platforms is that you can't just take the same ad and slap it in every place. And we're talking mostly about Instagram versus Facebook versus LinkedIn as example, that these different platforms work better for different kinds of purchases. And I'm wondering, when you look at what someone has to sell, do you right off know which platform it's right? Is there a price cutoff? Is it a product type? Is it that makes you focus on a particular platform? Is it just the target users? Like, how do you figure out where something belongs?
Um, well, I'll tell you my ideology
Okay.
that guides my ad creation. First thing is ads have to be bespoke. So, in the same way that you code switch when you're talking to your partner or your parents or your friends, that your ad needs to take into account the platform you're on, how people interact with that platform. People are usually pretty relaxed when they're on Facebook. They're usually at work or thinking about work when they're on LinkedIn. So just how a person behaves on a site, I think, is really important. Because when you're creating an ad, you're just trying to convince someone of something that you, and I do want people to acknowledge that ads are not always for a product. Sometimes they're for an idea. I do a lot of promotion of articles that people have written where they have an idea that they need to get out there to a lot of people. And so,
Oh, there you are. There you're back.
oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I do a lot of ads that are looking at an article and getting kind of an idea out to people. So, you know, kind of working with that message, making sure the message itself or the product itself is kind of as enticing as possible, but then also helping people manage their expectations. I think that's the next piece. Everyone wants their ad literally to have like an instant ROI. How much am I going to invest in this ad? And I want to be making X amount off of it instantly. And think about, you woke up, probably it's like 9 a.m. or something in California, that you probably woke up just a little while ago and you've already been served thousands of ads. Like if we're going to count ads as every product you have in your kitchen cabinet that has a label on it, it's selling you something. Like it's a brand, piece. And you saw stuff in your feed that was a literal ad that someone bought and put into your feed. You saw maybe billboards, you saw, op-eds, which are essentially ads, for an idea. So we know that we interact with like thousands of ads per day, and I've purchased nothing from the moment I woke up till now, even though I've been exposed to thousands of ads. And the point is getting people who want you to make an ad to understand and have realistic expectations of how long it's going to take, how many points of contact you need to have with someone. So to me, if an ad campaign strategy doesn't have retargeting in it, you've like don't understand how ads work. Yeah. So take for example Allbirds. If I was the first time I saw that ad for Allbirds and had heard of Allbirds, my brain kind of said, "Oh, those are sneakers that I would like." As I scrolled past, did not click on it because I did not want to buy sneakers. I had no intention of buying sneakers at the time. I needed to see that ad probably 20 times in 20 different ways till I got to a moment where I needed sneakers and remembered Allbirds and then went to the store and bought it. Now, in time, every member of my family has bought Allbirds, and some of us have bought 3 or 4 pairs of Allbirds, like over just a year or two. So Allbirds has made a couple over $1,000, let's say, off of our family at this point for those ads. And they probably didn't spend $1,000 on me as an individual to get to
Right.
me. They may have spent thousands of dollars, but to hit thousands of people at the same
Right.
time.
Right.
So their actual ROI is fantastic. They can't connect all those dots,
Right.
directly. So maybe their ads don't look like they perform amazingly, but I can tell you that they were able to get me by retargeting me over and over and over again. So it's helping people sort of manage their expectations and then also the limits of the platforms. And this is what sort of gets to what you asked, which is that, before we've ever started, generally people come in with an idea of what they want. What they want is not necessarily what is best for their product. So part of my job is also walking them through the platforms and what it's good at. So um, if you think about Google, people talk about Google search ads a lot, but you're competing against people with enormous budgets. Coca-Cola's budget for keywords is going to be bigger than any solo person. And you're competing against nonprofits who have a Google grant, which is free money from Google that they gave to level the playing field. So Google is also a very passive ad. You need someone to search to find you. So if they don't search,
Right.
it was sort of meaningless. And there are certain products that people are the sweet spot for that is you have a product that people are going to search for and it solves a problem, but you're the only person in that. Or you have a product people are going to search for and you're highly localized. So you're going to be the if you have it, you're going to be the place that people go because they can just go down the street and get it. The problem is when you're in that middle spot, and I would say that 99% of the world is in that middle spot where you don't have a huge budget, you don't, but you have something that's pretty common. So to cut through the noise, you either need an enormous budget or you need to have something super unique. You can do display ads in Google, which I would say are, I mean, think about how many ads you notice on a sidebar of a website, or the
Right.
ones that are like at the bottom of People magazine that look kind of sketchy, that you generally skip over. How many times have you skipped the video that plays before a YouTube video? I skip them. So that's why I don't recommend things Google for people who are sort of in the middle unless they fit that 1% of like highly localized or highly specialized, but searchable. Um,
Yeah.
and then you have display ads, which are Facebook and Instagram. Those are my favorite because they are the cheapest. You can get a ton of data beforehand on how things will perform before you ever spend a dollar. You have great targeting. It's really creepy when you kind of get into it and you see how much they know about you, and so that you can find the people. And then you have someone like LinkedIn who also does those display ads or putting it in somebody's feed. But also think about like with the platform itself, are people looking to sort of, are they scrolling mindlessly and therefore might click on something because they're relaxed and whatever? Or, I mean, to me on LinkedIn, it's a time that if I'm looking at it, I'm usually at work or thinking about work. I am probably not going to use my time on something that I don't think is literally feeding me, or giving me something I need. So I'm less likely to interact there. I think they're great for if you have a job that you are having a really hard time filling. If you have an event, I think they're actually pretty good. A book, that's a nonfiction book, pretty good at. But for LinkedIn, it's a hard sell for a lot of other things. And then the one that drives me bonkers is people come in, they really want to reach kids, they really want to reach teenagers or 20 somethings. And so they're like, I want to advertise on TikTok or Reddit. And I'm like, you can, but these are ad adverse sites. So the people who are on them are not, they don't want ads. They're people who have Facebook, they're used to ads. They grew up in a time period where all television had ads. They understand why there are ads, and they understand that for a free product, you sometimes need to pay with your attention. That you have kids who are on TikTok and Reddit who have grown up with no ads and streaming, and I don't think they um, are currently that's the way to reach them. And luckily, there are free ways to also reach people that you can try that are not paid ads, but are I
I
think
mean,
of still ads.
TikTok is overrun with influencer campaigns. I mean,
Yeah,
every other creator is selling something all the time now. Every other thing I see is a sponsored thing, but it's not traditional ads.
right.
It's,
But I think of them as ads because they are selling me something, even if it's free, even
right.
if the person didn't pay for it. They're trying to sell me on get me to take action or to think a certain way. And all
Right.
those are ads. So
Right.
also
I'm just
helping
saying, I
people.
think those are influencer programs more than
Yeah.
advertising in the way we've been talking about. So I'll never forget once you told me, I was saying, oh, I want to experiment with advertising. Would you help me? And I told you my budget, which was minuscule because I thought of it as an experiment. And you told me that I would be better off doing a targeted email campaign to people within my first and second degree network or whatever, and with good, than to do advertising. And so this brings up the question of math. So, in addition to being good at messaging and marketing, like what is the math you're doing that says, oh, your acquisition, what you're going to get out of that. And by the way, if the thing I'm promoting is an idea like an article or an event, like I did experiment with promoting some of our free webinars on LinkedIn. So I'm not going to see a revenue stream from this, right? I'm going to theoretically see maybe new members. So what is the math that you are doing when you are figuring out to tell someone like me, listen, that's just a waste of your time. Send 50 great emails.
Yeah. Um, I'm either the best or the worst ad creator because I do talk a lot of people out of making ads.
In my
Um,
mind, that makes you the best.
Um, yeah, I guess my goal is always not to give a dollar to a platform unless I really believe that dollar is going to make a difference. So my goal is always to spend the least amount of money possible in order to reach a goal. When you asked me, you didn't have an ad account set up yet. Like you
Right.
were setting up an account. And what I also knew, so the first thing, there was no math involved in that case because what I could say was, okay, Facebook, when you start a new Facebook account, your ad account is throttled. this is actually to protect you, on the user side of things,
Yeah.
that chaos agent couldn't come on to Facebook, build a new an ad account, and then buy a $5 million ad spreading disinformation. They can do it, but only after a certain time. So you need to first spend money in order to get it out of that throttled period. It's not like a literal thing like once you spend X amount, then they will take off the throttling. What they're doing is they're seeing the type of ads you create in the beginning, and you might make an ad for $50, but it will only spend out $36 of it, and then it throttles it, or it'll hit the amount for the day and won't show it anymore. And then if it performs well, they let you buy a slightly bigger ad and a slightly bigger ad. You are going to use your whole ad budget in order to just get it out of that throttled period. So I knew, not that the ad is still working during that throttled period, but for you to really start seeing the cost come down, you Facebook especially and Instagram kind of goes through a training period where you are directing it where the audience you want to find, and how you're, look, I'm making good ads. Trust me, let me make more ads on this site. So that was not a mathematical one. On the opposite side, I sometimes have people say, I really want to make an ad for X, and I can go into looking at how it's performed organically and tell them through a ratio that I'm looking at of engagement and impressions and clicks, and I'm pulling together all this data, and I can tell them before we've even begun, this is how much it's going to cost to reach this many people, and this is how many people are going to click on this, because we can predict that from organic behavior. And it's not necessarily, I can see, you can be like, oh, it's my best performing thing. That'll be the one she chooses. Well, no, it's actually not. It's a ratio that I'm looking for. And some of that is also based on your overall health of your site. So I'm trying to see, before I ever make your first ad, is I am going to do a checkup like a doctor and make sure everything is healthy in your page, because I can also see if Facebook has an opinion, well, not Facebook, but the algorithm has an opinion of you and your content, and whether it throttles you beyond the benchmark. And if it's doing that, your ads are never going to perform well. So there's a lot of pieces that go in to making an ad well, that is positioned from the get-go to do really well. So I I did tell you not to make an ad for that reason. And I might change my mind if you had been running ads for a while and you had an account set up, and I could crunch all those numbers and be like, yeah, you know what? This actually could work.
Yeah, I mean, I just remember that from the good old display advertising on blogs days that, you know, talking to clients, you'd be like, okay, there's different metrics here and they mean different things. If people are clicking on the ad, it's probably a pretty good ad. If nothing happens after that, it's probably not the ad's fault. It's the site's fault. And where are they landing, and what does it take for them to get to do what you want them to do? And I think, the difference between click-through rate and conversion rate is all about things that as a publisher, you don't control their website. You don't control, used to be super frustrating because, we'd be like, but our side of it's doing fine. You need to like clean your own house. And so there's like a chain of events, right? So, and then if the ad's not getting, is not getting click-throughs, then yeah, let's talk about the ads or the placement of the ads.
That's another piece. If you're hiring someone to do ads for you, that I would ask them what kind of monitoring they do of their ads. I am monitoring my ads several times an hour for the first, yeah, I
Yeah.
know, several times an hour for the first 48 hours, with the exception of when I'm asleep. So you will see me quickly, you know, scroll on my phone and just check and see how it's doing. And in doing that, I'm also tweaking the ad at times if it's not working. I cannot tell you how many times I am on the other side of it where I'm not making the ads, but I happen to be working on a project and someone else is making the ads, and I'll ask them questions and they can't. I mean, I asked for how many saves had happened on an ad, and the person was like, "How do you see that? How do you find that out?" And I was like, "Whoa, that is like literally one of the template like metrics on Facebook." So I had to explain to them how to get into that data and was also like, wait a second. As the ad creator, you should know this number instantly. This should be I'm monitoring this and I know saves is going to be the metric we're looking for the most for this type of ad. And I should be mindful of that and noting it and proactively talking to the client and saying, hey, I'm not seeing the ads. I'm going to stop this ad. We're going to regroup for a second and then we're going to make new ads So knowing all that data, I'd always want to hire someone who's going to do really deep monitoring and then tweaking to make it more successful.
I, so something in all of these platforms we're talking about, like, it's not a 30-second television spot. It's not, these are often constrained in copy, constrained in size, constrained in what you can say and what you can't. A lot of constraints. And you're constraining who the target audience is. And you often get advice to go as specific and as targeted as you possibly can. So I just do you like, how do you think about this narrowness and constraint in your work? Is that kind of the puzzle part of it? I mean, there's a part of that that seems kind of fun, like how do you boil something down to its absolute? I used to like that about Twitter. 140 characters. Ooh, how much density can I get in 140 characters? But is there any place in advertising on any of these social platforms where you really are talking about something expansive or universal, or like you really are trying to just reach everybody, or is that just doesn't exist in this format?
No, I don't think there's any message or product out there that you would be like water, maybe air, like just saying that like literally
We have the best air.
every single person ever would be like, this is great. Baby animals, like, no, I don't think I, I don't think you can go wide like that and have a lot of success. So it is about, the piece that you just said about it's like a puzzle. I always say it's like sewing, like in tons of threads coming into a base, like a fabric. So that's how I design my ads. I have a base, and that base is super specific. And then I create threads coming off the base. And then I can shut off any of those threads at any time. And what it'll keep doing is funneling the big pot of money down into the threads that I still, the little avenues that I've created into that base. So it is fun. It's a puzzle of like, especially the targets on Facebook, infamously keep changing. They change all the time. You have a target and you're like, this works and I can find my audience through this. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, and we're taking that one away too. So triangulating and kind of finding your audience, and especially if it's a audience who once existed and now doesn't exist anymore. So people are like, wait, I need to find this audience again and getting them that audience by kind of triangulating it between like, well, what makes that audience unique, and what are some things that they all kind of collectively like or go to or do or read. Um, so it is. It's fun. I think it's really fun. It's like a puzzle and seeing what's on what targets are there. I'm talking about Facebook ads with this. For a
Yeah.
lot of the ad platforms, people don't realize how few choices they have. and that the metrics or the demographics that they can account for like are pretty narrow,
Yeah.
and they may not be what they actually want. And so sometimes when people also promise on a platform where I know there is no way they can have that audience and know that audience, and they're like, and I'm going to get you, this audience on that one. I'm like, no, you're not. You're going to go wide and you're going to hope the audience is in there. But I think that Facebook can be a lot of fun and Instagram because you have millions upon millions of interests and facts about a person. And
Like you said, it's a little creepy.
yeah, a little creepy, very creepy. And putting it all together and trying to find that audience inside of there. And then once you find them, retargeting. That's the name of the game here. Always have
That's the thing.
retargeting. Yeah.
Noted. I don't think you can retarget on LinkedIn, can you? I don't remember
Not
seeing a lever for that.
not in the way you can on Facebook.
Yeah. No wonder you see that same ad stalking you everywhere. Even after you buy it, though, I have to say that's the thing that bugs me. Like sometimes I buy something and then the ad follows me and I'm like, I already got it. I guess I can hide. You can hide any ad. So
Yeah.
anyway, well, Melissa, thank you so much for sharing just a little bit of your wisdom on this topic. I'm sure many of us are already playing around in that playground, and I'm sure many more of us are like thinking we ought to. And I think you ought to as well, but maybe with someone like Melissa by your side.
And if
But
people have questions, if you watch this and now you have questions, you can reach me through melissafordstrategy.com, and I'm happy to kind of, if I said something that you were like, what does that mean? Just you feel free to email. I'm very reachable.
oh, thank you, Melissa, and thank you for sharing everything you know. This was great.